What's up, everybody? Nick Wyatt here with Wyatt and Dad Cobbler Company, and today is part 2 of our Grant Stone recrafts. In part 1, Tony did a total overhaul, breakdown, his thoughts on his pair of Grant Stones. You can see a quick recap here. And today in part 2, he's going to be rebuilding those things, taking them back to new, and talking about the process of that. So without further ado, stick along.
All right, so now we're sticking this back down, sticking that back down. Now it's time to put the shanks back in. Something I wanted to cover about the quality of their shank. As you can see, they have a triple rib Springer steel shank. It's just as good a quality as ours. Ours might be just a touch thicker right on the edge. So we might, if you weigh 350 pounds, you might want to upgrade to ours, but it's not going to make that much of a difference. These are really good quality shanks. So going to glue that back in and put the cork on after that. Almost made that fella walk backwards. Did you see me try to stick his shank backwards? Wouldn't have known if he was coming or going. Me being that fella, I'm already confused, so that might not have been a good thing for me. Okay, so one of the things that makes or breaks a good stitch job on a used welt is getting your machine set to the exact same stitch length. Okay, that's very difficult to do, but once you learn how to do it, it's not that hard every time. So I'm going to go over that and cover how you set your machine up to be able to line up with the stitches, and how to make sure that your stitch length is the right length so that when you start stitching, you're not trying to stitch in between every other hole. Alright, so what we're going to try to do here, or what I'm going to do here, is I'm going to reuse the original midsoles. I'm going to tell you what, with all the trouble I had trying to save this original midsole, I would have been better off if I'd have just used new midsoles. But some shops don't offer new midsoles like that, and some shops don't have the means to get new midsoles like we do. You think what one shop can get, other shops can get, but that's not true. Some places are very limited in what supplies they can come across. And there's nothing wrong with this midsole, since I'm reusing the original welts. If I was doing new welts, I definitely got to do new midsoles, because there's no possibility of doing what I'm about to do with this. But you can reuse the original midsole if you're reusing the original welts. And a lot of you heard my talk on my video about midsoles, which is one of other videos that we published, and what midsole should you choose and why. And this midsole does not fit the criteria for my weight. It's a regular midsole. It's not a thick midsole, which I've stated in several videos that I like a thick midsole for standing all day. However, these boots are not the type of boots that I wear for working in and standing all day and being on my feet and stress and straining. So a regular midsole. Now, some of you may have noticed throughout this video, maybe not, might have been edited out, I don't know, but you may have noticed that some of the threads that hold the welt on were a little fuzzy. That comes from different things. Mostly it comes from where the stitcher stitched too close to the welt thread stitch line and picked them. And you might say, well, why didn't you take that apart and re-sew it? If it were a bad enough case where there was multiple that were damaged and things like that, I definitely would have done that. Would not have been something that I would have overlooked, and I didn't overlook the fuzzies that we did have. Remember, these are my boots. You know, I mean, I don't do it for customers for sure, but I don't even do it for my own boots. I just don't make excuses for cutting corners. But when I cemented those stitches, I will be laying those back down, and they will be just as strong and hold just as well in that, because they were not multiple stitches in a row. It was a little fuzzy here and a little fuzzy there, and glue it back together and everything will be okay. So I didn't skimp on that. That was intentional that I left that so I could show you guys. See, I'm sticking those fuzzies down, getting them where they belong. There was only a couple little ones, and like I said, they weren't multiple rows. Even though I've already broken these in for a year and a half, these boots were still a little bit stiff. So I want to flex my leather before I put it on. What you want to do is you want to try to line up all of the original holes with all the original holes in the welt. You don't want to stretch it and get too far away from it. So you stick it very, very carefully. Make sure you get your edges lined up once you've got your end to end. Kind of go around and pinch it around the edges. Okay. And then you do your center. Then I want to welt press it very carefully. I don't want to shove it on the welt press. I want to keep it right out near the edge, because I want to control how I put the pressure and not squeeze anything away from itself, so I can line everything up the way it's supposed to. While I'm doing the other one, I'm going to go ahead and put the leather sole on this one. So I like a thick sole, midsole, and sole, and then I'm going to do a sole protector on these because the first time I ever wore these, Tobias asked me to go pick up his motorcycle from the motorcycle place. He was getting a new tire done or something. That was the first time I wore these boots, and those soles were so slick. And here I am trying to push a motorcycle up a ramp and get into the bed of my truck. I about broke my neck and dropped his motorcycle off the truck. Neither one of us would have been real happy if that had happened. So I'm always getting myself into stuff to where leather soles just really don't work, are not conducive to my lifestyle. So I'm going to do a thin sole protector on these. So I'm going to go ahead and do the leather soles, and then we'll mark it for the sole protectors. I like to flex the leather a lot before I put it on, because every bit of this that I do is that many steps the wearer doesn't have to take to help break in their boots and shoes when they get them back from us. We get a lot of customers that write us or call us or communicate with us one way or another. Man, I sent in a brand new pair of boots and I had hardly any break-in when I got them back from y'all. Now I got a question for you guys that watch us on a regular basis. How long into this video did it take you to realize that we are not in the cabin doing this video? We are actually back in my original station that we had that we filmed in before we got the cabin. And how many of you, to be honest with yourself, didn't notice? Now at this point right here, a lot of you have seen me do half soles where I take and score it with a knife and trim out this side right here. The reason I do that is for a lot of the new guys who don't have the skills yet to just use their sandpaper and rough that up, and that way they could see how to do it, and when your skill level is not that way, and you still get a good, nice, straight cut. But in this case, I'm not going to do that because I want you to see how it can be done this way as well. Now, you've heard us say cement doesn't stick where cement isn't at. Several times in other videos. But another thing is if cement is too thick, it also doesn't stick. So you got to put it on nice and thick and then kind of clean it back off. Alright, so if you notice, I did these two different ways. I channeled just the waist area because that's what's going to be seen after I get through with my sole protectors. And on this one, I channeled it all the way around. The reason I did that is for your benefit. It's not going to matter to the structure of my boot, but I did it for your benefit. I wanted you to see the difference between a couple of things. So I did this because that's going to be exposed. The rest of it won't be seen, and it'll structurally be fine. So this one is going to be done with the channel knife completely up, no channel knife involved. And this one is going to be with the channel knife down, cutting the channel as it goes around, so it won't really matter if it jags up the leather just a little bit. Plus it's less likely to, because I've already roughed that surface up. So you can see how it'll cut the channel as it goes. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch this boot completely dry and see how it does. And then on the other one, if this one does fine, I'll stitch the other one dry. But if it doesn't, then the other one I will wet the welts and show you how that works. Because sometimes that's the ticket that helps make the difference in the way the job looks. Now you see, as the stitch went around, because I had set the depth before I cut my channel, I went and cut my channel based on the depth, and my stitches fell in my channel really well. Right here you can see it didn't hit it. I kind of dropped the boot just a little bit, but look at here on the top side, I nailed all the holes. Except for right there, there's a few holes, and that's where the other person had stitched a little. You can see the distance from the split welt part to the center. It's a lot closer right there, so the original stitcher missed that, and that's a risk that you run when you do a reuse in an original welt. And some of my customers, there's another spot right there where it missed. Some are like, yeah, I couldn't stand that, man, my OCD kick in, I wouldn't be able to take it. So that's one way, and you can look real close. I want you to get a good visual of how the stitch looks. Does that look nice and clean and smooth like the other pictures you see of our posted work, or does that, you know, where we've done new welts? To me, that looks very jagged and rugged and kind of sawtoothy. So that's the risk you run with using an original welt and a contrasting stitch. Now, if this was a black shoe with a black stitch, or a brown shoe with a brown stitch, you'd never notice that because it blends right in. We're going to try one other method, which is to wet the welt. This is just water. It's not what the label says on the bottle. It's just an old bottle. I'll put water in it. Now, I'm going to take my heel lift. While that welt is wet, I'm going to put a little pressure, try to smooth down some of these bumps. And by the way, I evidently nailed the length of the stitch, or otherwise you would have seen that shoe jumping all over the place and me fighting it while I was stitching around it a while ago. Because when it's dry, it'll really fight you. Wet, it'll just make everything look bad, but it won't fight you so much. So that softens that leather up, and I've made the bumps not stick up quite so bad. So let's see how this comes out. Also, I forgot, I need to set my channel knife down so I get a cut. Now, one thing you need to know when you're setting your channel knife, you don't want to go too deep, and you don't want to be too shallow. So every machine is a little different in what it appears, but you learn your machine, play with some scrap leathers. But the main reason that you don't want to go too deep is it creates a lot of drag and it will shorten your stitch. So you'll have to adjust this length to match the amount of drag, and boy, that's really harder to calculate. Okay, as you can see, I nailed the holes. The only holes that are showing that were original was those ones where I showed you where the person stitching it the first time had dipped in. Those are right there. But my depth from the side to the interior was correct. And the stitch is not quite as zigzaggy and sawtooth looking. So, you know, the wet stitch can help, or the wet welt can help deal with that. But I definitely got some resistance and was having the machine wanting to stitch a little shorter, so I was having to help feed it a little bit, and got a little skip stitch right there, and I wasn't feeding it there yet. That was just where the machine just all of a sudden let loose of its drag that comes from the wet welt. So, you know, there's downsides to everything. So if you do new welts, you don't have to worry about anything, because you can stitch on the new welt without wetting it or running it dry and getting either of those things. But that'll work, and I believe my stitch is close enough. Once I clean this up a little bit, it'll be better. I probably won't wear these the way they are. I'm gonna go ahead and finish them out for the video, but then I'm probably gonna 99.9% I'm gonna take these apart and do new welts, because that kind of thing bothers me and I wouldn't be able to wear it myself. Some people, your OCD level is different than mine, and you'd be okay with that. Okay, another thing I want you to notice is this is the one where I pre-channeled it. This is the one where I let the knife cut the channel. So you can see those stitches are just as protected as these stitches. They're down in a channel just as deep, and they're okay. So, you know, either method is just fine. Now, one difference on this method versus this one has the wide channel, and you can see the stitches. This one, and I'm going to be doing this, is hammer or rub that. You see how it closes it up? So if I'd have cut that a little bit deeper channel with a deeper knife, I could actually close that up to where all you'd see is the line right there. You would never see the stitch. But I don't like that, but a lot of people do. So we're able to do that as well. But you can see it doesn't expose, you know, you don't see the stitching as well. So a lot of people like the cut open channel because it's the same protection, but they can see their different colored stitch. As I've mentioned before, on half sole blends like this, I like to put a piece of tape across here. I say, as I mentioned before in some things, and You know, some things I say in my videos and the editor cuts me out. So I'm not in control of that. But I said it. I just don't mean it made it on a video. So you may or may not have heard it before. So hopefully this one will make it. The reason I do this is not just so I don't get any cement on the sole, but it's actually for a better bond. So I can take and be sloppy right here, but I can be very clean and thorough about getting cement in there, whereas if I'm trying to cut a line, I may leave little blobs behind and they don't dry properly. And while that's still wet, I just peel it right up and I have a nice clean line, and I know it's going to be good and secure in that area. On the heel base, it's not as important to be dead on the line because we're going to be nailing the heel base on anyway, and cementing them is just really more of a squeak preventative than anything. When I first started in shoe repair, manufacturers and shoe repairmen alike didn't cement the bases. We just stuck them on, set them on there and nailed them on because we didn't have to worry about the squeak factor. Okay, so now I don't want to have too much heel spring. I went ahead and put my sole protector on so I could make sure I balanced out my heel just right. See how that's got a little bit of rock in the heel? I don't want that. I don't like that. It doesn't go well with my gait. But also, if you look right through here, you'll notice that the sides are up higher than the center. So really all we've got to do is take these high spots off and then just rough that up. And that should take care of leveling out the base so that we sit pretty. Let's see how it goes. Okay, first go around, I got it to where I've got no, I mean, you always want just a little bit. You can see it's barely moving when I push on the back of that. That gives you a little bit of arch support and helps use your arch support properly. But you don't want a lot, and that's exactly what I want right there. So I nailed it the first go around. Now it's time to nail the heel bases on. Okay, so I'm going to use the wire wood heel nails. We used to call them threaded, hardened threaded nails. I'm using a 6/8 in this particular case. And the reason I am is the bases are 3/8. The leather sole is 2/8 and the midsole is an 1/8, so that's a total of 6/8, and I don't have to worry about going in my inner sole. Now I know that Grant Stone originally came out from the inside into the base, but I don't like doing that unless it's necessary. This is a 360 welted shoe, and going into that is all you really need. Two companies that have been around forever and make high quality shoes is Allen Edmonds and Florsheim back in the day. And that's where I learned this from, is on the 360 welts. It's not necessary. I've got a glue, even without a glued on base, Allen Edmonds for years only held the bases on with these threaded nails going through the sole like that. Alright, now we're ready to put our heels on. So alright, so we got these done, and I'm pretty happy with them. Like I mentioned earlier, I probably will end up redoing these because I reused the original welts for the purpose of this video, and my OCD level won't allow me to really enjoy this shoe with them, with the stitching the way it came out. But at least now you know why we recommend new welts and why we don't recommend new welts. Because if this was a boot I was working in and that was it, this would be fine. Structurally, there's nothing wrong with what's going on here. Just cosmetically, I just would prefer to have new welts so that I can get my stitching looking the way I want. I experimented with using a gray stitch and versus the white stitch that they came with, and I do like that look going on the natural welt with the gray stitch. Now these welts were natural, but over time they've aged, so I went back with a light antique edge because I felt like it would match the welt color better. So the gray stitch looks really cool. The midsoles fit. The stitch holes lined up with the midsole and the original welt, and then we stitched them on a couple of different ways for you. One thing that I didn't cover about this boot that I want to make sure to cover is solid boot. I'm just, I pointed out some bad things, but I can point out bad things about every manufactured boot or shoe out there. This boot is made very, very solid, good quality leather. A little over about a year and 9 months. Nothing but abuse, no upkeep at all, and they still look. I mean, they're in great shape compared to what I put them through. The liner is a really good quality calfskin liner. The leather inner sole is a nice quality leather inner sole. Everything about this boot I'm very pleased with as far as quality. Comfort, the leather soles were a little bit hard to break in and get comfortable because it's a very, very stiff leather compared to other leathers that we use and work with and everything. However, do have a pair of Grant Stone boots that came with the day-night style soles, and they were comfortable right out the gate. They've got the midsole. Everything about them is the same. It's just that has that rubber sole. And as I stated, you know, I'm a lot more comfortable with rubber soles because of the activities that I do. Leather soles just get a little bit slippery on me at times, just because I can be wearing a suit coming from a wedding or a church service or something like that. Somebody's on the side of the road in a ditch. I'm just going to step out and help them, and whatever I have on is going to get messy. So I like to have something that'll give me a little bit of prepared for, you know, kind of one of those sayings, know thyself, I guess. But the quality of the eyelets, the quality of the speed hooks, top notch. I mean, everything about this boot, especially for the price range, is top notch. There are some things that we covered in the Recraft about the quality of the welts and things like that. The quality is good. They're just very, very difficult to work on. That's a good thing for the consumer, and it's a bad thing for the cobbler. Now, there are other boots and shoes out there that are a lot easier to work on, and they're very high quality. I didn't mean to play them down. It's just they're more recraftability, more recraft friendly. That's all it really boils down to. But you can't go wrong with this. It's definitely a boot I would recommend. I love mine. I've got 2 pair. Love both of them, and they both gave me completely different purposes. So they're very versatile as far as that goes as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, hit like, subscribe, and definitely leave us a comment. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, you know, what you'd like to see in the future. We try to cover the gambit for you guys so that y'all can see all different kinds of things. Just let us know.